People are just relentless. Even if the intensity of it or the magnitude of it has decreased more recently, but that sentiment is still in the street, right? And I think social media is the main factor contributing to that, because every single morning, people who feel stronger about the protests and everything, they just open their Instagram and they see stories of what happened yesterday, protests next to the bank, next to the municipality, in Martyr Square, etc. And this is just feeding the revolution, if you want to call it, one day after the other.
People are fed up here in Lebanon with the situation. They cannot afford it anymore. Yeah, this time it was against everybody, not against some party. As I told you, fed up with the situation, with corruption, living such different days than before. Yes, I believe in that.
What is the difference between actually and the old people? For example, in the 1970s, there were many movements concerning the Lebanese university and the reconstruction of many things. What is differentiate the actual situation compared to the old? That the actual situation, there is no leader, no man, no one which is pushing or guiding or forcing other people to move. Right. It is self-acting. But in the old, when we have been young, always there is someone, something behind.
My name is Kamel. I'm a management consultant, and more recently, I'm a food entrepreneur.
Feryal, my name, and I'm a private banker.
Faleh, I'm ex-professor at the university, and now I'm retired. Since there is no leadership, no leader, not leader as person, no directive, nothing which is going to realize this. The slogan, are good. The titles, very good. But we have to materialize. We have to realize. We have to make concrete these ideas. To put these ideas, to materialize these ideas, you need people. So people should be there.
Well, actually, it's a nice moment to get maybe two opinions, because you're describing what you saw in the 1970s, so 50 years ago, half a century ago. And I'm going to only guess some of the demands are still being chanted on the streets today. They're not that much different. People just want a better life in this country.
Exactly.
You're talking about the magic of the moment, which is that it's leaderless and there's strength in that. And you're also talking about the need to translate that into a political, a more structured, sort of a more organized way of making this more effective politically. I want to ask you, Kamel, since you're not from the 1970s, and you're somebody that walked with me regularly on the streets, and we saw what your dad is talking about, leaderless. I mean, everybody is there, yet there's not one face that we recognize and identify with.
Yes.
Do you see that your father's maybe concerns are your own concerns, that this will not last unless it's turned into a more structured political grouping? Or do you think that that's not necessary? Because what you're talking about is, in a way, I think the generation gap, which is you're used to, as a father, you're used to the organized top-down, one leader demanding something, and you're seeing the complete opposite today. Is there something that maybe it's unbalanced, that it's too leaderless, or what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, the immediate thought, I don't know if it's about the movement having leadership or not, versus the momentum just cannot be sustained at the same intensity, right? At the beginning, people going to the streets every single day, and then 2 weeks after maybe, or even just 1 week after, people started going there every weekend. And then probably the second month, people started going every other weekend or once a month or even less so. So the
So
momentum is
yeah.
just fading off progressively, and that's inevitable. Whether there is a strong leadership and a leadership that makes itself visible,
Right.
or not, the momentum is just bound to slow down organically, right?
Do you think it would stay alive if there were leadership, if there was something available already, or do you think that would be a detriment to it?
I mean, historically, looking at how things were going, whenever there is leadership, whenever you have faces, a lot of effort on the other side is put to take down those people through old social media posts, through, I don't know, compromising pictures, maybe through anything. So the effort is from the other side becomes focused on taking down those leaders, those individuals, and with that the whole movement fades away quickly. Just like we saw maybe with the طلعت ريحتكم, they really had charismatic leadership and outspoken people, and I don't know, like in an overnight you started hearing about old social media posts and everything, and the whole attention was diverted towards something completely different than the cause everyone was
So I'm getting maybe that there's a positive and negative to this. The positive is that it is
I still didn't get to the negative part of having no leadership. So something positive is that you cannot take down the whole movement by shooting down individuals. You have no leadership. The negatives of it is, sometimes you have people who are just opposing everything, and at some point you start feeling these people are negative. They're just saying, no, I don't like this, I don't like this. Okay, what is it that you guys like?
Right.
Like, fine, just taking the position of the devil, being the devil's advocate. People were looking for the next prime minister, and all what you could hear in the streets is no to this, no to that. Okay, who is it that you guys want?
Right.
That's one of the disadvantages. You have people passionate about the cause, calling for something, but then you can't really get suggestions or names. Who are those people? Who will approve of them? Who will say no or yes? Who will suggest the names? That's very ambiguous, and then that's the disadvantage of it.
And just I want to mention that people now are having new problems in their lives, like the bank crisis, let's say, and the government. They want to know who will be in charge, and the global situation, the macro, related to the region, all the Middle East. I think that's why the attention is not now concentration on this.
Because you have a longer perspective. You've seen this country try in the past. And I think we would agree that most of the time it hasn't worked. Most of the time. That attempts at change have not yielded positive results. I don't want to be too negative, but I think that is the truth. That this country has not been working for a very long time.
Of course.
But the older generation, pardon the word older, that's as an earlier generation, thank you for that, I needed that word. Are you worried at all about the concerns you had in the 70s? So now we have your son, Kamel, who's joining potentially 1 million people on the streets in Beirut protesting. You're from a generation that saw this country turn to violence. Is that on your mind one bit this time? That this could turn violent as a result of maybe instability? Do you see that on the horizon, or do you think we're immune to that? That we're not going to go back to not necessarily a civil war, but civil unrest? Do you see that violence is potential this time around?
I think this potential might be possible. It means that there might be some violence, not because of the people who are moving, because some interference, some people might interfere and might create this problem.
Right.
And this is related to the idea that I'm going back a little bit for the no leader for this movement. I think there will be no leader in the future, in the close or the far future, because especially in Lebanon, first of all, there will be no leader because of one thing which is now occurring, and which was not in the 70s or 80s, the communication, the multimedia, the information. The information now is decentralized.
Yeah.
In our days, in the 70s, it was centralized, the information.
Right.
And centralized information needs some leader, some hierarchy to distribute this information.
Are you talking about communication with leadership, that we can all
with
post
leadership or
things?
with the population? So since everyone is talking about with everyone, so there is no need for leadership, and there will be no leadership because of the decentralization of information now, because of the media, which are facilitating that. More than that, in Lebanon, there will be no leadership because we have the problem of religion and confession, so each leader, if he is going to raise and to become leader, he will be put down, like Kamel said, by other communities. So, because of the multi-sectoral situation in Lebanon, and because of the centralization of information, there will be no leader. No leader, it means every small community, of a small group, might do whatever he wants, and there will be someday, somewhere, someone will go to violence.
So in other words, it's really it's neither a positive or a negative moment. It's just a very different stage in our history that things have fundamentally changed.
Yes.
And we don't know whether it's too early to tell if this is something better or worse long term. You know, I'm somebody who's a little older than Kamel, but younger than you. I'm kind of maybe right in the middle. I've seen identity emerge this time around. And for me, that's one of the hardest things to identify in this country is identity. And I think it's always in the background that we're talking about what it means to be Lebanese. And then one sentence after that, it gets complicated. And this time around, it felt, at least superficially maybe, just by looking at it, it really felt like this is one nation at one time, all doing the same thing. And this may be very easy to explain. It could just be watching it on TV and seeing every different city protest the same way, which is unusual in itself here. Tripoli to Nabatea and Beirut and the whole country. That was, I think, very special as somebody who's seen attempts before, and this time that happened. But even then, it's hard to locate what Lebanese identity is. And I don't think that maybe needs to be answered. Maybe that's a door that you can leave open. But it always helps to have some clarity once you get in, like maybe a common understanding. And I think, this is my opinion, I personally think food is the sweetest way to celebrate Lebanon's history and its current identity. Is that a statement that's too romantic, or do you agree with that sentiment?
No, it is very, your description is very accurate, very correct, and yes, what is common concerning this Lebanese is the food, the way the food is done, the way the food is treated, is eaten, is prepared. So this is some common. You go to this village, to another village, with different mentality, all completely different. But with the food, you realize they are almost equal, almost the same, almost.
And it's not something you can negotiate. It's not like our food is better than your food. No, it's the same food. Oh, sorry, Kamel.
No, I just to that point, it's funny because there is some food competition. You know, you get someone from Hasbaya and someone from Zgharta and have them compare olive oils.
Right.
It's not going to be or the kishk.
But
it's not going to be a friendly conversation.
These are the healthy differences.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what I wanted, you articulated the whole relevance and importance of food heritage in a very beautiful way. I think the only thing that I can add to what you said is even when there is differences when it comes to food between different regions of Lebanon, those differences are celebrated by people and not their points of divergence. You know, you get someone from Beirut who goes to Bsharre or Bsharre, and they try ma'kroon, betum. They never had it before. They're like, they're curious about it. They want to try it. They enjoy it, and they go tell others about it. So differences are celebrated. Right. There are differences, but they're points of meeting and not points of divergence.
Look at positively. Yes.
Exactly.
Right. And the competition you talk about, it is based on some ego background, not politically or not because of religion or
pride.
Class, social classes. No, because of I prefer my food and you prefer yours.
Right.
So this is the competitivity, and that's it.
And
which is healthy, which is good, positive.
And the other differences are not necessarily bad, because it's great to have a country that has so many different communities living together. But that unfortunately always takes a political tone in this country, whereas food has never been politicized. Food is actually kind of safe. It doesn't, you can't wage a war based on whether or not your zed zaytun is better than mine.
Exactly.
Or maybe you can, but it would be a losing struggle, right? Because nobody would, you can have different opinions.
Honestly, Ronnie, we thought about this thoroughly, and other than food, the only thing that might be even close is music. At some point you had Fairuz, Rahbani, Milhim Barakat. Also, these are names, and.
But I want to challenge you on this point. I thought the same thing as somebody who's younger and didn't always think deeply about it. Even someone like Fairuz and her son Ziad Rahbani have unfortunately, maybe they are not trying to be politicized themselves, but they are now considered to be a certain sort of political type of musician, even though their music is just music. Am I overthinking that?
No, you're right. Probably the Rahbani brothers elevated above that, or Milhim Barakat.
Yeah.
More recently, you're right. There has been some feuds on this.
Yeah.
But it's music and food, but more so food, just like you're saying. It's like really, even something like frike that is predominantly present in south of Lebanon within the Shia community more so. It's never thought of like this. Someone from Kisirwen coming like, frike is very interesting. Maybe they haven't tried it before, just heard of it. It's those differences are healthy. They're nice. They're celebrated.
Now I'm fortunate to be talking in your shop, which I think is in itself a celebration of different geographies. I'm just looking at the wall, and I've been here before, but I've seen what I thought was quite telling. You're identifying where each different type of food comes from, and they're not all villages that I know. These are particular villages in certain areas. Is that a deliberate thing that you guys did, that you wanted to celebrate different geographies in addition to the food? Or is it just by chance that this is where the food comes from? I'm curious about the way you're addressing Lebanon's geography, because it's very clear where each one comes from, and I like that. I like seeing where it's from. Is that a deliberate way of celebrating?
Definitely. Just to take a couple of steps back, we really wanted to celebrate Lebanese identity, and then food was really, just like you said, the best way to do it. And we opened a retail shop. It's not a restaurant, a retail shop to collecting Moune products from all over Lebanon.
Can you tell me about that, Moune products?
Moune is, in itself, it's a very traditional, a concept very much linked to culinary heritage. It's our ancestors started that concept out of need. Moune is the art of preserving food for long and harsh winter times.
Right.
So we're talking drying vegetables, or pickling vegetables in vinegar, or pickling vegetables in oil like zaytun, or turning vegetables or fruits into vinegar like apples. Honey is moune. Even awarma. You cook lamb meat in its own fat, so that it you can preserve it for the whole winter without needing a fridge. So our ancestors needed that. Actually, when we were at a hotel in Baalbek, Palmyra Hotel, one of the oldest hotels in Baalbek, There was a guy there, a very super nice guy called Ahmad. Unfortunately, he passed away recently, but he was an icon for Palmyra. He's been there for 50 years.
Wow.
Welcoming everyone, serving everyone there. He was an icon. And then he told us about times in Baalbek when they used to be stuck in their houses for more than 2 weeks with snow covered by snow.
Right.
And times like these, you only have access to moune to eat.
Yes.
This is when they started having labne, ambaris, and awarma, and
you chose that area of cuisine deliberately.
Because these are the products that you can collect from all over Lebanon and share them with everyone on a wide scale. You can't really have sayediyeh, and it's just much easier to focus on moune products.
Right.
And to your question about being deliberately covering all regions of Lebanon,
just like a superficial way, I'm just looking over. You see Feryal Banyan, Beirut, Zgharta, Alay. That's one little shelf.
It would have been much easier to just get everything from Bekaa. You have most moune there, and you just go to one or two sources, you collect everything, but that's not the point really.
Right.
If there's an amazing product in Feryal Banyan, like
I was going to ask you if hashish is moune too, but I don't know about that.
It's not legalized yet, so we don't have it.
Does it fall under moune?
If you want,
sure,
depending on your definition.
So you're picking and choosing.
So we actually put effort to covering more villages and more areas to make sure most parts of Lebanon are actually represented in our shop. And we're constantly scanning more villages and really trying to cover the whole Lebanese map.
But can I ask you, how do you do that? How do you actually, it's a small country, but it's a complicated country. And it's not always easy to go from village to village and approaching people and saying, I'm here to celebrate you in a shop in Beirut. So how do you do that? What is the, if you permit the word politics of that, how do you handle that?
When you ask anyone in Lebanon or outside, for example, I would like to have the water blossom. They tell you directly, go to Magdouche, which is next to Sidon, for example. If I would like to have some rose water, they told you to go to Bekaa, some specific village in Bekaa.
So different villages are recommending each other?
So this is one criteria. Another criteria, for example, each kind of product depends on the kind of soil, the climate, the way it is prepared by people. So we would like to have some different kind of preparation for the same item, same money. This is why we ask and we make tour. It took us more than 1 year, and this year only to have the tour and to search and to taste and to look and to.
You spent 1 year.
But before that year, each one of us knows something in his background.
Just wanted to say that people, when they come and they see products from the villages, if they are from certain village, do you have something from our village? And then they enjoy a lot when you tell them that you are from Baalbek. Yes, we have this. They enjoy.
They're eager to also provide. Wow.
There's a big sense
they
of
like
pride
the
in that.
variety.
Right.
We're a family really passionate about food. So even before deciding to dive into that project, we already had solid sources for different products. So we started with that small circle of producers, and then we did a lot of research to understand what are the products that we want to bring to the boutique, and for each of those products, what are the regions that are mostly known for that,
I see.
And for some products, we went for the typical, first thing that comes to your mind, just like my dad says, mazahar. Everyone, depends. Some people say magdouche, some people say almoun. If you're from Tripoli, I'm guessing.
But that's interesting. So this is an evolution of your own personal curiosity about food.
Exactly.
So the shop is a byproduct of your own interest.
Exactly.
So I've only known Kamel for a year, so I would like to maybe get your own backstory. Is this a shared love that you both have, or is it something that you came upon later? I mean, why did you end up in this world? I know from Kamel's photos that I see on Instagram that this is a very family driven thing, because you're always eating together, you're sharing food together, which is a great thing to do. But I can only imagine this started before Kamel was born, that you guys were always sort of passionate about food.
Yes. I have my studies in Paris in the 70s. So in the 70s, I have been for 3 years in the campus, in the university campus, and I should cook in the Maison du Liban, where I am living there.
We both lived
not every day.
We lived in the same place.
The same place. Okay.
This is in Quartier Latin 20 years ago.
And in this campus,
that little kitchen,
there is lot of houses,
yeah.
And many houses have the restaurant and
the
kitchen and some specialty for this.
So you cooked in that kitchen of the house?
No, not in the common kitchen. But usually every Sunday, not all completely, but usually some Sundays we are a group. And everyone is going to bring something and prepare, and we cook and we share all together this food. Even though someone preparing his PhD at that time was ready to roll the vine leaves to stuff and the zucchini and making some very difficult.
These were
kind of
other Lebanese students, or these were just
all Lebanese.
Yeah.
All Lebanese.
So did you take that with you from Lebanon to Paris?
No, I have little bit, very small experience, but there I have some passion for food.
Okay.
And every time someone is coming from Lebanon, my mother sent to me some food, and when he's arriving, all the group, all are meeting in my room to share this food. So this kind of love for food, it was there.
This is 1970s before the war or during the Civil War?
After, April 75.
So just after the war started, you went to Paris?
I have some bourse, which is grant from the Lebanese university to have my PhD in Paris.
Now, can I just push a little further? This is almost 50 years ago, so it's quite some time. I'm only guessing that the Lebanese that were with you are not all one type of Lebanese. You had different sort of different communities,
different religion, different parties in the Maison du Liban, in the Lebanese house.
Right.
There is Kataib, Shuyu'ib. There is where no Amal, no Hezbollah that time. But
the parties
and in Paris, we are a little bit close to the 68.
The cultural
movement 68 in Paris.
Yeah.
So there is some reaction, some movement. So
I'm curious. You go to Paris. There's war in Lebanon. There's no social media, but you know that there's a war happening, and you're able to catch it on the news sometimes in the newspaper. You see that people are killing each other in Lebanon. In this little house in Paris, when you're cooking together, was food a unifying factor for you as students? So in other words, you're talking about Kataib and potentially, Murabitun sitting together, eating the same food, and was that sort of a way to bridge these people together?
Yes, sharing together. There is some conflict, but between quotations, some civilized conflict. There's not fighting there. I remember one.
Were you all cooking together in the kitchen?
Yes.
That's interesting. So
I remember one thing still in my mind. In Paris, you are not allowed to buy a chicken, live chicken, and to
kill it yourself.
In order to eat it. It's not allowed there. Some people living with us is trying to buy a chicken and insist to kill it, to cook it and to eat it because he would like to kill it.
was. You knew how to cook already, or did you learn how to cook when you were abroad?
I learned.
You learned
I
there.
learned by practicing.
Right.
Yes.
But okay, so it wasn't your family that was
No,
very...
when I live inside in Lebanon,
Yeah.
I didn't cook in the
Okay.
at home.
Yeah.
After that, when I got married, so
Yeah.
Feryal is we share together this skill.
I didn't cook at home when I was still with my family, my mother. I didn't used to cook because, I have to go to school, then university. I had no time. And my mom, she was doing everything
So your mom
by herself.
was cooking
Yeah.
at home. Okay.
But she used to put a complete meal every day for us. So when I got married, I bought a cooking book and I worked on it, and it was great. But I just want to tell you one accident with what happened to me.
Kamel.
First time. No, it's a gift from God.
I'm joking.
Thank you, Fifi.
I'm just kidding.
I wanted to make some lentil soup.
Yes.
So the lentil they were with some salt because to save for a long time. I cooked the lentil and the soup was very salty. So I add some sugar to it.
To try to neutralize it, yeah.
So
But did you have, living inside that then Beirut during the war, was food part of your life? Or is that something that comes just later, that you wanted to at some point open a shop? I mean, I'm curious about the beginning of this story. What is the sort of, what drove you to do this as a business?
It was Kamel. Kamel idea, yeah.
Okay, so this
planning
is, so
and everything.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Actually, both of my parents are really family people.
Yeah.
And we used to bond, as we still do, bond as a family over food. So besides the typical meeting over lunch or dinner, we used to, I don't know, on Sundays go have manouche at this amazing guy in Bikfaya, or more recently, once a year when both of my brothers are in town, one of them lives in Lausanne, another lives in Paris. When they're in town, all of us cook at Taule. We make a guest chef appearance at Taule, bonding as a family, and we're using food and enjoying food.
You saw your parents raising you this way with the love of food, and you decided then we could do something else, which is maybe turn this into a store and a shop.
Yeah.
Coming back to during a difficult time. It's difficult being in Paris without money, but I think it's more difficult coming back to Lebanon at times of war. Yet you succeed, and you get married. You're living together. You're struggling, I'm guessing, like any Lebanese would during those years, and we have difficult years of history. Yet you're able to sort of keep everything together, and you raise a family in Lebanon. Those were dark times, and I'm too young to really remember how painful it was. Although I do have memory of the 80s, but they're bad memories. They're not good memories. Fast forward today, 30 years later, 40 years later, you have a son who's pursuing a store, a business, and encourages you to be part of that store. And you tell me if I'm wrong. The economic situation today may be as bad, if not potentially worse, than those years. That things are really economically, everyone's struggling today. There's a lot of pain. Can I ask you, this time around, are there ways to ride out the economic crash that we're all going through at the moment? Do you trust that the Lebanese traits are all that it takes to sort of live through this moment and get to something better? Or are you personally, privately, are you afraid that this time is really, really bad and things are going to only get worse over time? And the reason I'm asking is because you have the long view. You've seen good years, you've seen bad years. I'm trying to put this moment in perspective.
I think the main difficulties concerning Lebanon, our community, this is that we are some community that importing a lot of things, more than this community needs. And this import foreign product, foreign tools, anything, it's going to we are getting to suffer from such kind of import that we get.
Are you talking about basic things like anything?
All things. So with our experience here in the shop with the Kamel, with the food, we realize that now if people are going to go back to roots, like we say,
Healthy food,
not mainly healthy food. Instead of buying some cheese from France, we can go to some village and buy the cheese from this village. So if we are going to go local, instead of importing a lot of things from outside, this is one kind of one line that can solve the economic situation now.
So you see potential hope there that we're going to start buying from within.
Well, and this shop, this shop learn me and tell me such solution is very important and very good, and it is feasible, and it is realistic, and it might be there. And instead of buying a lot of cars, you can relay, instead of buying, for example, buying generators for electricity, we can use our rivers or our some clean and some good, some healthy in food or power or resources. All of these might solve the economic situation and the crisis that we are suffering now from.
I think it's good to hear an earlier generation be that hopeful, because I don't usually get that. I get sort of the more pessimistic. It's nice to hear that there's an optimistic view here, that maybe it's time to actually look inside as opposed to outside.
Being hopeful for the business versus not by design. It's not that we wanted the business to be like that just to endure such times, but like the way everything unfolded, we were fortunate that our whole business model is based on sourcing products from the inside. We were definitely affected by the whole economic downturn and people's limited access to money and everything. But I think we were less affected compared to to other businesses that are completely based on importing products.
So in a way, you're shielded from the bigger economic...
To a certain extent.
Right,
to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But I mean, also it makes you think, just sharing thoughts from our experience, even in our business where people would think 100% of everything in the store is local. We have our jams in glass jars, and then our supplier of glass jars is a factory in Bedawi in Lebanon. But then not all of his jars are produced in Lebanon, just a very small part of it. I mean, in Lebanese economy, the deeper you dig, you will always get to a point where something is imported. Why don't we have a factory that produces glass jars? Why do we have to import? Factory means employment, means productivity, means diversifying away from services only and tourism, you know?
Can I ask you though, your maybe shared opinion here, why do you think we're so dependent on imports? Is it the way the economy is structured that it doesn't encourage domestic growth? What is I mean, because to me it's I'm confused a bit that Bedawi factory is importing from abroad. That to me is surprising. It would be very strange to not be able to buy jars only made here. Why do you think that's the case?
This is due to colonization.
Sorry?
Colonization. One day there is Lebanon usually is colonized by others, such that you should rely on them. You cannot be auto-satisfied or self-satisfied by.
Is this an issue that goes back to your earlier years? That when you were younger, was this a similar problem that things were being imported
Yes.
Okay, so this is not something new for Lebanon. It's an old
It's
issue.
all- yes.
But I also think, Ronnie, by design, the Lebanese people has a very strong affinity to commerce,
Yeah.
doing business rather
Yeah.
than production.
Right.
There's some agriculture, hospitality, you know.
Yeah.
So if everyone wants to like do commerce, make business, like who's gonna make the products? Maybe it's just historically we've been a port for the whole region. And also we have more limited space compared to other countries.
But I'm
Yeah.
curious,
Set up
is
And the
factories.
politician also.
What-
Yes,
what-
yes.
They want every time somebody, let's say they want to build some factory, they do want him to pay him 20%.
Okay.
The one who's
so
ruling.
corruption is part of the problem in
Yeah,
terms
of course.
of manufacturing
Yeah.
in Lebanon?
Yeah.
Okay.
So to your question, politics are discouraging people from building factories rather than encouraging them
Right.
because of corruption.
How has corruption impacted you? No need to point the finger in one direction. I'm just curious in the experience of opening a store. Forget the revolt, forget the revolution. Just how has corruption played a?
There are international indices. One of them is the ease of starting a business, and in countries like the UAE, they rank extremely high because everything's digitized, centralized. You can do most of the paperwork you need online, and then you
Right.
can set up a business in a couple of days, maybe, as opposed to us starting this really family business.
Yeah.
That is a small business. It took us a lot of work. Like every single step, you need to reach out to different parties, and they're extremely slow in moving. Not to say sometimes you really hit a roadblock, and then you need to get creative in how to get things moving. Still, you know, like setting up the sign for the shop.
Yeah,
It was a nightmare.
Can you? I mean, okay, I don't want to put you on the
Yeah,
spot
yeah.
here. We don't need to go into sort of. I don't.
Okay.
Forget the subject. Forget names, right? Just
Yeah.
that experience.
Yes.
You're describing it as a nightmare, right?
Yeah.
That's just a sign for a shop.
Yeah.
So can you tell me about that? What was the nightmare?
We were planning to open the shop in January 2018. Okay.
Okay.
So
yeah.
sometime in early December 2017, no, sorry, we opened the shop in January 2019. So a month,
Okay,
like
yeah.
6 weeks before that, we decided to apply for the permit to install the sign, hoping that in a couple of weeks we will have it installed, and then you open the shop, you have your sign set up and ready.
Which doesn't
And then-
sound like a big.
No.
You know, it's just a small little.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just
simple
a small,
step.
a small step, and then you go online, or you
Right.
talk to your lawyer. You get what the needed documents, required documents are. You secure everything. You put everything in a nice folder, and then
Yeah.
you go apply for the permit. And then we open the shop, and then it's been operating for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, with like 2 months operating still without a sign shop because. One, we refused to install a sign without getting the permit, and two, we still haven't gotten the permit 2.5 months after applying for
Right.
it.
So let me ask you then. 2.5 months,
Yeah.
you're waiting and waiting, and you're getting nothing in return.
Yeah.
Is that part of the corruption story that you simply have to bribe to get the sign up, or is it not that straightforward that you just?
I mean, I don't know what the motivations are or the backstory behind what I've been facing, but I can tell you that following the process linearly, it just didn't work. So this is where you need to get creative, talk to people, ask what needs to be done to have this executed, and then you get what you need at the end.
I'm assuming here you're saying that you're unable to do it the correct way. You have to kind of figure out the softest incorrect ways of getting something like a sign up.
Yep.
Okay.
Something basic.
Something basic.
But I would like to add something, which is very bizarre.
Yeah.
That little bit close to Beirut, the same problem is not there. It means that a shop can open, can put a sign within days, and it is done. And some people, I asked him how long it took you to have. He asked me, is it a problem? Within 2 days, I did it, and no one is telling me, asking me, doing anything. It is done. So, not question corruption. It doesn't mean that here they need money to allow us to do it. Even though with money we cannot do it.
So it's not about necessarily bribing. It's just about there's no system. There's no system.
The problem of system.
Right.
And every location, every region has its own system.
Yeah.
And there is no general rules, no supervision, no.
Right.
And this leads to the corruption.
Now that's a year ago that you opened the store, right? You're opening it during an economic downturn. I mean, you're opening it when things are not healthy. And fast forward a year later, we just went through we're going through it. It hasn't crashed yet, but it's on the way. Do you sense that long term, that these issues, they're very basic issues. You're talking about something that has very little to do with politics or even, they're small, simple things. You want your sign and you want it set up the right way and you just want things done on time. This minor issue, do you think that is on the table where people are now demanding those issues and that, let's say, a year from now, that it'll be easier to do something like this?
I think this is where, very nice transition back to Thawra and the whole movement happening. Personally, after setting up everything, we haven't been engaging much with the public sector, on the permits and everything.
Yeah.
And it makes me extremely sad to say it, but most private businesses in Lebanon, they just want the public sector to stay out of their way. We do things on our own.
Right.
They just do the bare minimum to be regulated and, but they just want the public sector to stay out of their way. And this is what we want as well, which is very unfortunate. But I'm hearing from friends who still have to go through some processes and apply to permits and everything. In light of the Thawra, and all people on the ground calling out corrupt people or inefficiencies in certain departments and ministries and public functions, the employees, public servants or public employees in public entities have became really more efficient or became more responsive. I have been hearing positive feedback about. So you see processes.
That there is some.
It's very indirect, but
yeah.
I think it started. And also, I don't know if politicians now really feel that eyes are watching them and they really weighing decisions and moves before making them. Right. Because people are now more easily calling out what they see. Because you need to have the minimum infrastructure, legal infrastructure, physical infrastructure ready to have a country, and then maybe in 5-10 years we can hope for the public sector to.
So you don't have necessarily hope for the near future.
Not for the near future.
Do you guys share the same opinion, the way Kamel is describing it?
Unless there is some change in the top, the top of everything. For example, if we have a minister which is going to act correctly as a system, this will have some result concerning all the ministry. Right. So the same with any institution. So if there is some correction in the top, there might be some correct. For example, this sign, we hope the problem of sign can be solved as significantly as example. If the top of the municipality is going to put things right. Put things right, it means what? To do a system. This system work like this. If you come, you or me or Kamel or she, the same process is going to run. Right. It is not now actually with you. It is going to act in a certain way, with him in a different way. Right. So there is no system because of the builder of the system is not doing his job.
So there's a lot of work to be done.
Is this something that got worse?
Yes.
Or is it always
It's
been
getting
there?
worse.
It got worse.
Yeah.
Can you take me back just briefly to just before the war? You're a student about to leave to Paris. Were these issues discussed? Or was it okay? Were things functioning enough that people were not complaining about these things all the time?
In the old days, there is no spread of information. For example, I live in a certain area, certain region. I don't know everything.
But I mean, something simple like putting up a sign in the 1960s. Was it such a complicated issue?
It was better the old day. It was better than now.
Yes.
I never hear my grandmother, she's still alive, in her mid-80s, I never hear her complaining about the simple things, which to me is telling. She always complained about the bigger things. Whether it's Syria, or whether it's geopolitics, or it could be Iran, it could be America, it could be Israel, the Palestinian issue. But she never complained about something small, like, I want to just get my municipality to do its job. And I think I get the feeling that it's just gotten worse and worse and worse over time. But it was tolerable to a point before. And then after the Civil War ended, do you remember it being as bad as it is today, or was it better than today?
It was better.
It was better.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think people...
It's getting worse with the time.
I think the reason is that now people knows more than previously.
Interesting.
In the old time, you don't know, for example, that there is a rule telling you to work like this or to do things like that.
Right.
You don't know this rule. You don't know that you have this right. You don't know that these people should do things like that. So he is doing wrong, but you don't know what is right, so you cannot judge. Now you know. Since you know
what's wrong
and what's right,
you can't do it right.
So you can protest, you can tell, you can act. So it is not question because old time or recent time, because of the spread of knowledge, and people usually the concept of family, of school, institution. There is one boss, one decision maker, the head of the family is doing that. So you have to obey. You don't have to discuss. You don't have to protest.
Right.
This is the rule. But he might ask you to do something wrong.
Yes.
Since he asking you, he telling you, he obliging you, as father or as boss in the company or in your institution, or as director of school or university. Now you know what are the rules, what should be done.
So awareness has made corruption more visible.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And the corruption, with the awareness and the spread of information, the corruption is the synergy power is going to increase.
I have a distant memory of my father telling me when he went to AUB in the late 60s, early 70s, that not one student would even think about parking the car incorrectly on Bliss. Everybody was afraid of getting a ticket. I mean, double parking on Bliss, I'm just like, it's just 40 years ago, but it's still quite telling. I mean, you can triple park on Bliss today, nobody will tell you anything. That if you violated the law, you'd get a ticket. It's a simple example of now you can get away with pretty much the basics. Yet if you want to put up a sign, you have to sort of zigzag through a labyrinth of chaos. And
we had more discipline before, and you get punished if you do something against the law. No, it's not the case at all. That's why we have this.
What you're describing is a demand among protesters, that there's a yearning for a normal country. I hope that one day I live to see something like that. I know that it's impossible to predict what will happen in the near future. I think it's probably both good and bad things will be happening to this country, and I really hope that optimism and hope prevails, because all of us have that within us. We're all hoping, and we've seen some marginal improvements, whether it's the municipality more inclined to fix problems today. Could be marginal, could be very small, but it still matters. And I know that, Kamel, you work in the Gulf and you come back every weekend, which I think also indicates just how inclined you are to not let go of this country. You still return. So that's a good thing. And I just hope your shop and what you're doing here survives all the turmoil that we're going through. It's a young store, and I hope to see it here the next time I come back. Thank you, Feryal.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and for your effort and for your vision.
You're very kind. Well, thank you for creating Kamel.
Thanks to God. And last word, thanks to him. He's doing, he's offering us something to do in our end of life.
You said you could. Wow, that's much better than I was just gonna say. Thank Kamel for the shop, but you know what? Let's do it with your ending. It's much better. Faleh, Feryal, Kamel, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.